Vanakkam Dohadevan, everyone. Wonderful to be with you again. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadi Tamastuma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And we'll share the screen here. There it is. And we have shared August 20th, 2023, our Asia date. And we're continuing the general theme of integrating Hinduism with daily life. We've looked at it in different ways the last few weeks, and this is part of that. And the topic is mistakes are part of the spiritual path. Subtitle: Blunders are in truth opportunities to improve our behavior and thereby make spiritual progress. This publisher's desk was written based counseling. This publisher's desk was written based on counseling many individuals over the years who made a serious mistake and afterwards are feeling depressed about it. It provides a 4-step process for responding to a mistake that turns it into a positive event. First, let's begin this part with a quote from Swami Vivekananda. The Vedanta recognizes no sin. It only recognizes error. And the greatest error, says the Vedanta, is to say that you are weak, that you are a sinner, a miserable creature, and that you have no power and you cannot do this and that. He and Gurudeva are so beautifully outspoken. Greatest error is to say you are weak, that you are a sinner. What does Swami Vivekananda's statement mean to you? What Swami Vivekananda is pointing out is that when we do something wrong, it is better to think of it as an error or mistake than to think of it as a sin. This is because a mistake is clearly something we can correct. In other words, we have the ability to learn from our mistakes and thereby avoid making them again. Oh, an interesting question. How it ties in will be clear in a minute. What are the 3 Shaktis of God Shiva, symbolized by the trident? Important insights into the soul's maturing process can be gained by looking at the 3 Shaktis of God Shiva, which are symbolized by his trident or Trishula. Icha Shakti, the power of desire. Kriya Shakti, the power of action. And Jnana Shakti, the power of wisdom, which are also the 3 powers of the soul. So the soul and God Shiva both have these 3 Shaktis. We first have a desire, and when the desire becomes strong enough, we act. In young souls, the action may be ill-conceived, even against Dharma. For example, a man wants a computer, so he steals one. Money is needed, so he robs a bank. The soul is often caught up in repeating a cycle of similar experiences, moving back and forth from desire to action, until the needed lesson is learned. In the case of the adharmic action of stealing, eventually he will learn the lesson that this is not the best way to acquire possessions. This may come from the difficult experience of being caught or by seeing the suffering our actions cause in others. Such learning is the jnana shakti, soulful wisdom, coming forth and causing one's behavior to improve. This process is the same for dharmic actions. Say we are helping out as a volunteer at the temple, teaching children's classes once a month. We like the feeling of helping others in a meaningful way and so decide to help out every week and even participate in regular meetings to plan the classes. We are doing a selfless action, and the reaction it has on us feel more inner joy. The jnana is to resolve to do even more service and thus feel more joyful. We have improved our behavior. Many years ago, a segment on television described an innovative prison in California. As we all know, the usual approach is to regard jail simply as a time of punishment by confinement for a number of years. Under this approach, many of the prisoners released repeat the same crimes and return to jail again and again. Their behavior shows no improvement. In fact, they may learn the criminal's craft while serving their sentence. In this innovative prison program, the warden had initiated a regimen that included counseling, yoga, and other therapeutic activities to improve the behavior of prisoners so they would not repeat their crimes and return to jail. The program is showing an excellent success rate. Reminded me, I haven't thought of that story before. Way long ago, Gurudeva, either in the late 50s or the very early 60s, was yoga at Folsom Prison, and they said you can teach everything, but you can't teach them how to levitate. So no levitation was allowed in Gurudeva's yoga classes. We often stay in a cycle of desire leading to action and repeat it many times before we learn from it and see how it is a flawed perspective and resolve to stop it. So that's natural. Nothing wrong with doing the same mistake more than once. For all of mankind, no matter where one is on the path, spiritual advancement comes from improving one's behavior. Said another way, it comes from learning from our experiences. Unfortunately, this process is often inhibited by the idea that somehow we are not supposed to make mistakes. The mistakes are bad. Far too many children grow up being scolded for their mistakes by parents. Teachers ridicule students when they make mistakes. Supervisors yell at workers when they make a mistake. No wonder many adults feel terrible when they make a mistake. To spiritually benefit from our mistakes, we need a new attitude toward them. Gurudeva gives us a new and encouraging way of looking at our errors. He describes mistakes as... What did Gurudeva say about mistakes? He described mistakes as wonderful opportunities to learn. He compared learning from life's experiences to progressing through the classes at a university. He proclaimed, life is a series of experiences, one after another. Each experience can be looked at as a classroom in the big university of life if we only approach it that way. Who is going to these classrooms? Who is the member of this university of life? It's not your instinctive mind. It's not your intellectual mind. It's the body of your soul, superconscious self, that wonderful body of light. It's maturing under the stress and strain. Parents and caretakers can teach children that making mistakes is not bad. Everyone makes mistakes. It is natural and simply shows we do not understand something about the matter at hand, or we have been inattentive. Perhaps our worst mistake is to not take the opportunity to learn from our last mistake. It is for parents to determine what understanding the child lacks and teach it to him without blame or shame. When parents discipline through natural and logical consequences, children are encouraged to learn to reflect on the possible effects of their behavior before acting. Such wisdom can be nurtured through encouraging self-reflection, asking the child to think about what he did and how he could avoid making that mistake again. Moving on, there are 4 progressive reactions that one makes a mistake. What are the 4 progressive reactions? This is an important one. See if you remember. Common first reaction to having made a mistake is to become upset, to become fretful or angry about it, or if it is a serious mistake, to become deeply burdened and even depressed. That is a normal first reaction, but if it is our only reaction, it is not enough for those seeking to advance themselves spiritually. To progress, we need to cope with the emotional reaction to the action and move on to the learning stage. Thus, a good second reaction to a mistake is to think clearly about what happened, why it occurred, and find a way to not repeat the mistake in the future. Perhaps we were not being careful enough, and simply resolving to be more circumspect next time will prevent the problem from recurring. Perhaps we lack some important knowledge, and now we have that knowledge, which we can simply resolve to use next time. Perhaps we created unintended consequences that cause problems to ourselves or others. Now that we are aware of the consequences, we certainly won't repeat the action. Many years ago, a group of teenagers in Australia started a small forest fire in which several people were seriously burned. They were caught, and as part of their discipline, the judge directed them to visit the victims in the hospital to see the consequences of their actions. This impressed them so deeply that they were overcome with regret and pledged to never vandalize again. Those who are striving to live a spiritual life are self-reflective and learn quickly from their blunders. In fact, one way to tell a young soul from an old soul is to observe how quickly he cognizes his error and learns not to repeat the same mistake. Often I get an email from someone who made a mistake in which he or she laments, "Oh, I should not have done this." Of course, belaboring one's remorse is just getting stuck at the first level of reaction. I encourage such persons to move on to the second level by not repeating, "I should not have done this," but affirming, "I won't do it again." That is the response we are striving for, not to simply feel sorry that we made a mistake, but to commit to not making it again, or at least trying not to make it again. Taking that step is exercising the power of self-reflection, which is how we progress on the spiritual path. Because the spiritual path is a series of experiences, offering many opportunities to falter. If we can study our errors and learn to not repeat them, then we turn them into new growth and progress. If we constantly make the same mistakes over and over again without improvement, we remain in a rut and delay our progress. A third remedy, see if you remember this one, may be needed if our misstep involved other people. Perhaps we have hurt someone's feelings or created a strain between us. A direct apology can fix this if we know the other person well. If we are not close enough to the individual to be able to apologize, A generous act can often adjust the flow of feelings back into a harmonious condition. For example, hold a small dinner party and include him among the invited guests. And the fourth and last remedy may be needed in cases of major misdeeds. For example, if we did something that was dishonest, even if we resolve to not repeat the misdeed and apologize to those involved, we may still feel guilty about the transgression. By performing some form of penance, prayachitha, we can rid ourselves of the burden of feeling bad about what we have done. See what the next slide says. How do you know you need to do penance? Because you have done the first 3 steps and you still feel burdened. Typical forms of penance are fasting, performing 108 prostrations before the deity, or doing walking prostrations up a sacred path or around the temple. These, of course, are too severe for younger children, but they can do simpler penances, such as skipping dessert one meal or renouncing a favorite TV program one night. To get the most benefit out of penance, we suggest that you have in mind specific misdeeds you regret having done, as well as promise the deity you will try your best not to repeat that misdeed again. That's my general advice for Taipusam. When performing the tapas, whichever one you choose, have in mind a specific misdeed or misdeeds that you did, and promise the deity you're going to try your best not to repeat that misdeed again. That really makes it adds value to the tapas, shall we say. And the point I was thinking of earlier was guilt. What place does guilt have in Hinduism? None. What does that mean? We're not supposed to feel guilty. If we feel guilty, we need to do something to rid us of the sense of guilt, such as by apologizing, giving a gift, inviting someone to dinner, doing a penance. We can get rid of the sense of guilt. In Hinduism, we don't want to feel guilty. It's not a positive state of mind. We want to rid ourselves of any guilt through those types of practices. Second topic, in the series of looking at character qualities through the approach of positive psychology. As we know, positive psychology did some research on all religions and philosophical traditions, developed a list of 6 virtues, and because the virtues were too abstract to be studied scientifically, they developed a list of 24 character strengths which manifest these 6 virtues. So each virtue has 3, 4, or 5 character strengths, which means the same thing as our term character qualities. Last week we started covering the character strengths and the virtue of courage, which are bravery, persistence, honesty, and zest. We covered bravery and persistence. This week we'll cover the remaining 2, honesty and zest. Third character strength of this virtue is honesty. How would you define honesty? It's an easy one. When you are honest, you speak the truth. More broadly, you present yourself in a sincere way, without pretense, taking responsibility for your feelings and actions. You are a person of integrity. You are who you say you are, and you act consistently across the domains of your life rather than being one way in the community and a completely different way in your family. As a result, you believe you are being consistently true to yourself. Interesting aspect of honesty. This strength involves accurately representing your internal states, intentions, and commitments both publicly and privately. The strength of honesty is often linked to self-concordance, the extent to which your goals accurately represent your implicit interests and values. Honesty allows people to take responsibility for their feelings and behaviors, owning them, and reaping benefits by doing so. Reflection. Take a moment to find an affirmation you could use to increase your honesty. Positive psychology suggestion for an action is to myself and to others. I try to present myself and my reactions to each person, and I take responsibility for my actions. Positive psychology's research. Recognize the degree to which the individual alters or modifies one's own opinions, feelings, and behavior based on what they think other people's expectations are. Work to develop relationships in which they can be authentic. Interesting approach. First exercise. The next time you are asked for advice, give constructive, direct, and authentic feedback. Second exercise. Honor your commitments in all of your relationships. If you agree to do something or schedule a time to meet with someone, be reliable and follow through. Third exercise. Write about what living an authentic life means to you and reflect on it often. Fourth character strength is zest. He looks very zestful. How would you define zest? Zest means approaching a situation or life in general with excitement and energy. Notice it uses the word excitement as well as energy. With excitement and energy, not approaching tasks or activities halfway or half-heartedly. People who are high in zest are excited to get up in the morning, and they live their lives like an adventure. Zest is the dynamic strength that is directly related to physical and psychological wellness. This strength has the strongest ties to overall life satisfaction and a life of engagement. Interesting. Strongest ties to overall life satisfaction. People who are high in zest are excited to get up in the morning. Right, I just read that. Okay. Fix that for tomorrow. Reflection. Take a moment to find an affirmation you could use to increase your zest. Positive psychology suggestion for an affirmation is, I feel vital and full of energy. Approach life feeling activated and enthusiastic. Positive psychology's research. Building zest involves increasing energy. While being mindful of what is manageable per one's physical health status, find ways to increase daily movement, exercise, or activities to engage in. Wearing a pedometer is one way to measure activity and self-motivated toward increases in activity level. First step is to get a baseline of the average amount of steps taken daily and then slowly work on incremental increases each week. First exercise, improve your sleep hygiene by establishing regular sleep time. Eating 3 to 4 hours before sleeping, avoiding doing any work in the bed, not taking caffeine late in the evening, etc. Common advice these days. People are doing well in lots of health practices, but getting enough sleep can be a challenge. And imagine that, eating 3 to 4 hours before sleeping. That's the most I've ever seen recommended. Second exercise, notice change in your energy level. Simple. I think that implies and try and figure out what caused it. Third exercise, do a physically rigorous activity, bike riding, running, sports, singing, playing, that you always wanted to do but have not done yet.